Hey Gecko fans, this is Wally Kern with Supreme Gecko, and today we're going to talk about 5 things I wish I knew 20 years ago when I started keeping crested geckos that would have saved me so much time, so much energy, so many dollars. Join me today and I'm going to share these tips with you. I bet you didn't know this, but I already did a video on 5 things I wish I knew before I started keeping crested geckos. I did this months ago. I'll share the link right up here. You can watch that video after this one. This is going to be 5 more things that I wish I knew before I started keeping crested geckos. And these are very, very helpful and very informative tips and techniques that I think will help you as well. But before we do that, put up 10 fingers. Put up 10 fingers. And I'm going to challenge you. Let's see if you know some facts about crested geckos. I'm going to go through these very quickly, so if you don't know an answer, put a finger down and we'll keep moving on. The first one is crested geckos are known as the eyelash geckos because of the ridge around or over their eye. Did you know that? Leave a finger up. Number 2, they don't have eyelids. They moisten their eyes by licking them. Did you know that one? Leave a finger up. Number 3, their scientific name is Coralophus ciliatus, but years ago they were reclassified into this genus, and before that they were called Rhacodactylus. That's why all over the place you see them called racs. Number 4, they come from New Caledonia, which is a very small island off the coast of Australia, much smaller than New Zealand. Number 5, they're arboreal. What does that mean? They like to climb. How are you doing so far? Hopefully you still have 10 fingers up. Number 6, they like to climb glass. They have little hairs on the bottoms of their feet called lamella, and that helps them to climb right up that glass. Number 7, they can lose their tails, and unfortunately they can't grow them back. Number 8, they're called nocturnal geckos, which means that they like to be out more at night than during the day, but really they're crepuscular, which means that they're out also during the dawn and dusk. Doing good so far? Number 9, crested geckos can live to be about 15 to 20 years old. And number 10, crested geckos are really super easy to hold. It just takes a lot of time and patience. Okay, tell me in the comments down below, how many fingers do you honestly still have up? If you only have 0 to 4 fingers still up, that means you've probably never even seen a crested gecko before. If you have 5 or 6 fingers still up, that means that you've seen crested geckos at reptile stores or at reptile shows. If you have 7 or 8 fingers up, that means you probably keep crested geckos and you're very familiar with them. If you have 9 fingers still up, that means you probably have bred crested geckos before and you're considered a very good keeper and an almost expert. And if you have all 10 fingers still up, why don't you go ahead and finish this video for me? Let's go ahead and talk about those 5 things I wish I knew 20 years ago before I started keeping crested geckos. Number 1, you've seen this all over the place. Don't feed your reptiles, especially crested geckos, mealworms. I think that this is a big myth in the hobby. It's been out there for a long, long time. We feed our crested geckos mealworms, and especially the babies. We feed our crested gecko adults mealworms in mealworm cups. We dust those mealworm cups with vitamins and minerals, and it's just perfect. Do they eat them like crazy? No, but they do generally eat mealworms out of these mealworm cups. And here's a really special tip if you're raising baby crested geckos. Feed them mealworms. I don't know of a better way to get them up to size and keep a healthy crested gecko than to give them mealworms. We give our crested gecko babies crested gecko diet the first couple of weeks after hatching, and after that we start feeding mealworms. I don't feed crickets because I think that takes a lot of energy from the baby crested geckos. Mealworms are an easy food. Here's point or tip number 2. What temperatures do you keep your crested geckos at? I think we all know that anything about or above 80 degrees is detrimental to an adult crested gecko's health. Once those temperatures get to be about 80 degrees, they're burrowing into their substrate. They're trying to find a spot to cool their bodies down. They're self-regulating their temperatures. So what does this mean? That means that most people keep their adult crested geckos at about 72, 73, 74, 75, somewhere in the mid-70s. And I bet you're keeping your adult crested geckos around that temperature as well. If that's true, leave a comment down below and let me know. However, 75-ish is okay for baby crested geckos, but if you can bump that temperature up just a couple, 3-4 degrees, approaching high 70s, that is fantastic for baby crested geckos. It stimulates their growth. As long as you can get the proteins back into that baby crested gecko with mealworms, with small dubias, with crickets, that baby crested gecko is going to grow so much quicker. Here's point number 3. When I started keeping crested geckos a long time ago, I was told feed them every 2 days. Now, that's a good habit to get into, but really crested geckos don't need to eat that often, especially adult crested geckos. We feed our crested geckos, we try to feed our crested geckos every 2 to 3 days. But I tell you what, in the wintertime, with the temperatures decreasing, we feed every 3 days and sometimes every 4 days. Now for the adult crested geckos, we absolutely feed on that 4th day if we've missed the 3rd day. For babies, we're still feeding every 2 days just to stimulate that growth. Are you ready for tip number 4? This is going to be controversial, folks, and if you feel differently or the same about this, leave a comment down below after you hear what my tip number 4 is all about. When I first started keeping crested geckos a long time ago, the thought was keep your males separate from your females. Your males will outbreed your females and just destroy them. They'll attack the females, they'll kill the females. Now this is great advice, especially for those of you just starting off with breeding crested geckos or breeding your 1st or 2nd year. So here's our thoughts on cohabitating males with females. We do it occasionally. We have our males with our females, but I tell you what, I'm watching these animals all the time. Every single feeding that I do, I'm checking the males to the females. And believe me, at the end of a breeding season, it's not the females, it's the males that I'm watching more closely. During the breeding season, the males will be super active and focus on breeding and not focused as much on eating. As well, we keep our crested geckos in our basement where in the fall, the temperatures go down considerably. So there is no breeding activity in our facility whatsoever in the fall or the winter. So for us at Supreme Gecko, this works for us for individual crested geckos kept together, males and females, because of several different reasons. Number 1, I know what to look for to make sure everybody's happy in a crested gecko enclosure. Number 2, our enclosures are big enough to handle multiple animals. And number 3, our temperatures cool down considerably in the winter to allow a resting period for those crested geckos. Otherwise, I strongly stand by the point that you should not cohabitate your crested geckos, males and females. And tip number 5, oh my gosh, I wish I knew this when I first started breeding crested geckos. If you're looking for a key animal in your breeding projects, make sure you look at crested gecko males first before females. Pay that extra $1 for the males rather than looking for a female or 2. We get these emails all the time. I'm looking for a female crested gecko to add to our breeding projects or start a breeding project. I can't strongly recommend more. Look for that key male because you can pass that male's genetics and get those same traits out of many different females. And then in a couple of years, you could have that trait to many different animals in your collection. If you're selecting juveniles, find the best looking animals to fit your needs that you can find. If you're looking for adults at a reptile show or online, look at the males first. You know me, I like to give more tips than I advertise in these videos, so if you want more tips on things that you should know before you start keeping crested geckos, or even if you've started keeping crested geckos, check out this video up here that I did a few months ago. It's going to be packed with additional tips and techniques. As well, make sure that you subscribe and hit that notification all so you don't miss another one of these videos. I feature a lot of rare geckos and obviously for sure crested gecko information as well. Thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next video.